So this is the ROG STRIX SCOPE II 96% wireless mechanical gaming keyboard. Yes, that's a mouthful, but essentially ASUS has created the Swiss Army knife of gaming keyboards. It has all the features that you can possibly think of, like both wired and wireless connectivity, a full-size keyboard with a dedicated numpad in a compact form factor, hot swappable switches, sound dampening materials, pre-loop stabilizers, PBT double-shot keycaps, a detachable wrist rest, tasteful RGB lighting, and a really cool mode selector multi-wheel feature that gives you intuitive control with Windows. It's been a really long time since I've looked at a gaming keyboard. Believe it or not, it's been more than 5 years since I used a gaming keyboard. And when ASUS reached out and said, hey, we've got this really cool keyboard that we want you to check out. It's got a lot of features. You might not need all of them, but it's there if you need it. I was like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a shot. So huge shout out to them for supporting this video. So yeah, let's just dive into what's new with the SCOPE II 96. Wireless. Now, one of the standard features of this keyboard is undoubtedly its form factor. ASUS has designed the SCOPE II 96 with a strong emphasis on portability and adaptability in mind. So they've condensed the chassis while preserving all the essential number keys from a conventional 100% keyboard layout. This not only frees up space on your desk, but also gives you more range for your mouse maneuverability. And if you're wondering if it's transport friendly, well, it fits my backpack no problem. Crazy, right? As for build quality, ASUS has stacked this keyboard with a ton of materials to ensure a comfortable and soothing typing experience. Here's an exploded view of what the keyboard is from top to bottom. As you can see, they're using an aluminum top plate with hard plastic bottom housing materials, and sandwiched in between, you'll find dampening foam with custom materials for the switches, along with a silicone foam to eliminate reverberations and echo when registering or just bottoming out your keys. I really appreciate the attention to detail here. You also get versatile angle adjustments, up to 3 options to suit your preference, and the included wrist rest attaches to the keyboard magnetically just like that, and the material is nice and soft with plenty of cushion, so it's nice and comfortable. It really complements your typing experience. I love wrist rests. I've been using wrist rests ever since I got into mechanical keyboards, so this is a great addition. They've also implemented a ton of key combinations that work out of the box without the need of any driver software. So it's a plug-and-play setup. So if you're into streaming, you'll find a set of hotkeys that can be used for Xbox Game Bar, like recording the last 30 seconds of your gameplay, start and pause recordings, and there's also a dedicated mic mute key. These are mapped as secondary functions by default, but if you want to set them as primary, simply press the function plus the equal key to switch them around. Another cool feature added to the SCOPE II 96 is the multi-function button along with the multi-wheel. Now these work hand in hand to give you instant control over a variety of adjustments like volume, media playback, and the ability to manually set parameters for specific applications. For instance, I was able to program the wheel to increase and decrease the brush size when I'm using Photoshop. It saves me a ton of time instead of using the keyboard shortcuts. It is intuitive and I appreciate this level of customization, but you are more than welcome to map it to the other built-in functions like scrolling through the web page, through the Armoury Crate software. There is an LED indicator tucked right in between the numpad and the typewriter keys, and this is sort of like your visual aid for any adjustments you make on the keyboard. As you can see, when I enable numpad, scroll lock, switching function keys, and Windows lock, it lights up with respect to each letter. And right beneath that, you'll find the LED visuals for the multi-function button. And finally, at the bottom, you'll see the Bluetooth indicators. In this case, you can pair up to 3 devices, which is pretty cool. Now, while we're on the topic of connectivity, I just want to quickly go over some of the options offered by the SCOPE II 96. So as I mentioned at the beginning, you can use this in wired mode with the included USB-C to type a braided cable. It's about 2 meters long, which is adequate for cable routing to your desktop PC. You can also use it in Bluetooth mode as well as 2.4G mode. ROG is using their Speed Nova technology that offers an uninterrupted near zero latency experience with faster signal transfer speeds, plus it brings a lot of power efficiency gains to the table, like giving users up to 1,500 hours of battery life with the RGB lighting turned off, and even more if you switch over to Bluetooth. And by the way, ASUS has conveniently programmed a simple battery indicator status. So all you have to do is hold the function plus minus key and it lights up the backtick to 0 keys corresponding to the battery percentage. I've mostly used this keyboard in its wireless mode for all of my gaming and productivity requirements. The connectivity has been exceptionally stable throughout, and it's worth noting that there is a switch at the front that grants users the option to switch between wired, 2.4G, and Bluetooth. I'm sure this will come in clutch for those who manage multiple systems simultaneously. Another notable aspect is the magnetic compartment located right over here that conveniently stores the Omni receiver. Once again, it makes that portability aspect a heck of a lot easier. This is the first ROG board to have this receiver, so you can easily connect this keyboard with the Harp Ace gaming mouse, so that saves you an extra USB port without compromising on performance. The keycaps are Doubleshot PBT and they are UV coated to resist keycap shine. Plus, they do include an extra ROG themed spacebar, and they've carefully placed the RGB LEDs underneath to illuminate the graphics evenly. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the fonts. They do look a bit too gamery for my taste, but that's just me. You do get some tasteful RGB lighting that can be cycled to different effects within the keyboard by simply holding the function plus left and right arrow keys. You can also adjust the brightness levels as well on the fly. But if you do need software control, ASUS has added that well through Armory Crate. You can also access the multi-wheel control and customized power options. Now, as I mentioned before, this keyboard does feature hot swappable switches. So you can mix and match what works for you. In this case, ASUS has introduced a new set of switches called NX Snow with this keyboard. So this joins the Storm, Red, Blue, and Brown lineup. It's a slightly refined version of their red switches, so while it still maintains that 1.8mm actuation point, they've redesigned the stem to improve stability, plus they are pre-lubed out of the factory, so you can really tell that they've added that premium touch. The clear stem also helps with RGB illumination. Aesthetically, I feel like it adds more value to the keyboard, especially when you look at it from the sides. That plus the pre-loop stabilizers sitting on top of these unique dampening foam materials results in a beautiful typing experience. As you all know, I'm a sucker for linear switches, so this sort of fits my preference. Every keystroke feels consistent and smooth. There's no pinging noise or reverberations that circulate around the chassis. And yes, even though ASUS is sponsoring this video, I've got to say, it's amazing to see how far the characteristics have evolved with mechanical keyboards over the past 5 years. ASUS is certainly paying attention to the details that we've been asking for, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition. So that's a quick look at the ROG SCOPE II 96 wireless. If you're wondering about price, it is retailing for about $179, which I think is pretty competitive considering all the features that it packs. I mean, you're getting a full-size keyboard in a relatively compact and light form factor. Plus, you also get the freedom of being wireless, and the fact that it comes with hot swappable switches is great. I just love that DIY aspect. Let me know what you guys think about it. I'm Eber with Hardware Canucks, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.